The House passed a new bill today banning transgender athletes from girls' and women's sports. It's the latest move in a culture war that's played out from the campaign trail to the volleyball court. San Jose State's volleyball team was one major target for anti-trans rhetoric as Republicans across the country campaign for a ban. ABC 7 News reporter Tim Johns explains the stakes of this new bill.
House will be in order.
On Tuesday, the House of Representatives voting to pass a Republican-led bill that would ban transgender athletes from women's and girls' sports. If it becomes law, the bill would apply to all federally funded schools and would change Title IX to recognize only the sex an athlete was assigned at birth.
What should be an opportunity for young women to thrive and compete has been clouded by an agenda that prioritized so-called inclusion over fairness.
The topic of transgender athletes in sports has been a contentious issue in recent years. Some, like Tom Temprano of Equality California, worry the new bill could harm the health and well-being of transgender youth.
It's, disappointing continuation by these far-right extremists to continue to make political pawns out of students that just want to, try hard and play alongside their teammates.
Temprano says the number of transgender athletes competing in school sports remains extremely small. He also believes Americans are more concerned about other issues.
Voters, again, care about the economy. They care about housing. They care about health care.
While the law isn't in effect yet, we were curious to see what the reaction was here in the Bay Area. At the Bruce Mahoney basketball doubleheader at Chase Center, some parents told us they see both sides of the argument.
It's a really tough issue, and I think that there's going to be some conversations that need to be had all the way around.
Others, though, were decided in their opinions.
Obviously, the males have a big advantage for females over females, and I think just to keep it separate.
For every sport.
Yeah, for every sport. No matter the sport.
For Colleen Crespo, she says she tries to remain open-minded on issues such as these. But when it comes to this bill, she believes the House made the right decision.
It doesn't seem fair. It doesn't seem fair when men are playing with women and then they're winning, and then it's like the women then don't even have a chance anymore.
The bill will next have to pass the Senate, where its future remains more uncertain. In San Francisco, Tim Johns, ABC 7 News.
Also in his speech, the president announced the federal government will only recognize two genders, male and female. So our John Ramos spoke with some transgender advocates who are worried about the message it sends.
For a long time, the Bay Area has been seen as being at the forefront for gay and, more recently, transgender rights. But now President Trump has made it clear that, in that regard, California is pretty much on its own.
I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear.
I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear.
As President Trump was sworn into office, it was clear that things had changed a lot in the country. But it was in his speech afterwards that he touched on the specifics of his plans.
This week, I will also end the government policy of trying to socially engineer race and gender into every aspect of public and private life.
And there was one particular group that was aimed at.
As of today, it will henceforth be the official policy of the United States government that there are only two genders, male and female.
Is that frightening to you to hear that?
It is frightening to me. We know that is not fact because we exist and we're here.
Chase Overholt works for Positive Images, a Santa Rosa-based nonprofit that offers support for young people struggling with gender identity issues. Chase believes the Trump campaign attracted people who were angry about aspects of their lives that they could not control.
And they're being pushed down by systems that they can't control and they might not be able to name. So instead, it's easier to find someone and vilify them in a way that makes you feel like you've got a leg up on somebody at least. And in doing that, they feel a little bit more powerful.
Beth Bourne would probably disagree with that. Over the weekend, she traveled from Davis to San Francisco to join a small group of Trump supporters at a large anti-Trump rally in the Mission District. Bourne, who usually supports Democrats, said it was the transgender issue that changed her mind.
And so for the first time, I've been voting red because it's actually the Republicans that want to protect girls and women from the idea that anybody can call themselves a transgender woman, which is a man. This should not be a political issue. Girls, boys, they're being harmed by this ideology.
But it's not just a disagreement over ideology. Noreen Farrell with Equal Rights Advocates in San Francisco thinks the president's words will encourage hostile environments for anyone seen as being abnormal in schools or at work.
I don't think it is an exaggeration to say that these kinds of orders will institutionalize discrimination in the workplace. And not just for federal employees or employees of federal contractors. It does provide a green light, I think, for other workplaces and schools and students. And I think the legal ramifications could be very dire and very widespread, not just for the 26 million people who work for the federal government.
It's still unclear what the executive orders will mean in practice, but opponents say they're already gearing up for the fight.
At this point, these are just words. Donald Trump is not the king. He does not get to dictate what happens in this country from on high, and will take all the necessary steps to address it and prevent him from harming LGBTQ+ people once we have more of those details.
The gender rights groups say California can create its own safeguards to protect against discrimination, but federal policies could still have some impacts. The director of the nonprofit in Santa Rosa says they are already planning to get no federal funding for the next 4 years.
Today, a nationwide movement is bringing people together to empower transgender voices, unite allies, and advocate for equality and justice. It's all an effort to stick together as concerns growing in the transgender community after President Trump signed an executive order threatening funding for schools that support trans rights. As your reporter in Denver, Jasmine Arenas, found out, Colorado has become somewhat of a haven for trans rights.
As people stand in solidarity, one organization is witnessing a surge in cases of people looking to relocate to Colorado in search of transgender resources and support. Zoe Elaine Scott is a rally leader for the Transgender Unity Coalition.
It is on this day that we'll bring all of us together.
Standing together in unison is important for this community as they protest against anti-trans policies. The effects can already be seen in Colorado, as Denver Health has now suspended gender-affirming surgeries for minors. That's in correspondence to President Donald Trump's executive order to cut federal support for those under 19 years old.
They think they've won on us, but they haven't.
I wouldn't be overly surprised if they were coming from a place of caution, but it is somewhat disheartening.
Kira Richards is the executive director for Transcontinental Pipeline, a nonprofit who helps LGBTQ+ and transgender individuals relocate from unwelcoming spaces in the U.S. to Colorado.
We got 22 relocation requests in October. We got 500 in November. And we're continuing to see a caseload that is nothing like we've experienced before.
The four-step relocation program funded by Community is seeing a caseload of nearly 1,200. The request coming from states like Texas and Florida.
We're doing everything we can in a very short period of time.
Colorado is considered one of the most accepting states in the U.S. for transgender people. That's because there are legal protections against discrimination based on gender identity, employment, healthcare, and housing.
The state is wholly unprepared for the just wave of internal migration that we're seeing. We need all the support we can get. We need contacts for local support organizations that can offer housing, mental health, basically anything.
The Transgender Unity Coalition tells me that they are planning to host more rallies, including one at the nation's capital in Washington on March 1st. In Denver, Jasmine Arenas covering Colorado First.
Jasmine is your reporter in Denver, and if you have a story idea you want her to look into, you can give her a call on our tips line, 303-863-TIPS, or reach out through cbscolorado.com.
This afternoon at the Capitol, Minnesotans are protesting President Donald Trump's latest executive orders that roll back transgender protections. The order cuts federal support for people under 19 years old who want to transition. It also directs federally run insurance programs, including TRICARE for military families and Medicaid, to exclude coverage for gender-affirming care. While some state Medicaid programs cover gender-affirming care, the new order suggests that the practice could end and targets hospitals and universities that receive federal money and provide the care. In 2023, Minnesota became a so-called trans refuge state. Then last year, lawmakers passed legislation to require health care plans to include gender-affirming care. Today, local trans community members spoke out about what they call transgender discrimination. Here's what they had to say.
I myself moved here from Iowa due to increasing laws that were affecting my well-being as a trans person. There are a lot of things happening right now the mass deportations. Heck, even there's an own House of Representatives, Republicans that tried to hold unjust sessions. Here today, though, we're talking about trans rights. With the executive orders coming out left and right, erasing trans identity by saying there are only 2 genders, banning transgenders troops from the military, we are here today to show the people that we are unhappy, upset, and not willing to be complicit in this.
One of the things that I think people who aren't in the trans community, in the wider queer community, aren't aware of is that this seems like small potatoes if you don't understand what we're going through. A lot of people don't realize how hard it is to not be called by the right name every day and by just the right gender every day. You know, being called he would hurt for me, and it hurts for so many people, and yet they're already making it illegal. We are affected every single day by these actions, and it's not even actions that voters want. We saw in the 2024 election that there were people who voted Trump for president and Democrat down ballot because they believed he'd be strong on the economy or on military, and instead he's racking up all these lawsuits that are costing us money.
On July 6th, I got on a plane at 5 a.m. to go to a state where I only knew one person so I could get health care I need. All I had was a backpack and duffel bag of essential items. It was the scariest thing I've ever done and the last time I would see my dog. When I landed in Minnesota, I cried because I knew I was somewhere I could live instead of just survive. I wasn't scared to use the restroom anymore. I was able to hold a job and build a life. I want others to have that too. Now I have friends and a cat who love me. I made it out of Texas for a reason, and it wasn't for me just to sit by and watch this happen. My existence is not a threat, and if you think it is because you assume things about me, that's on you. We're all human, and what's right for me might not be right for you, but you don't have to live the same life as me.
I would say I definitely saw this coming in terms of, and I think a lot of people here in Minnesota specifically saw this coming. A lot of us moved here, me, Quinn, Charlie, at least, knowing that this was a trans refuge. Say, I saw the writing on the wall in Iowa, and we're worried we're going to have to move again in terms of, like, what's Canada going to be like? What, you know, is there going to be a country that's safe as the world moves further right on this issue? And so, you know, it's one of those things where it's like we saw bad things coming, and unfortunately we foresee bad things coming.
I just want it to be clear for everyone watching, you know, this isn't just a red state, blue state issue. There is still a lot of work to be done here at home, making this community and the state a safer place for transgender kids especially.
Tomorrow in Talking Points, Esme Murphy profiles Minnesota State DFL Representative Lee Finke. She is one of the few transgender elected officials anywhere in the country who's speaking out. Tomorrow, you'll be able to watch the entire interview on WCCO's YouTube channel.